Okay, I have a scenario for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine you walk into a bar or maybe a very exclusive, very confusing boardroom.
The boardroom, okay.
And sitting at the table are three people. First, you have a partner from McKinsey, the massive global consulting firm.
Right.
Next to him is Wagner Moura.
The actor.
The actor, yeah, the guy who played Pablo Escobar in Narcos.
Wow, okay.
And sitting across from them is a hardened, ultra-wealthy oligarch.
That sounds like the setup to a joke that I am. I'm definitely not smart enough to understand.
It really does. But here's the punchline, and it's arguably stranger than the setup. They're all agreeing with each other. They're all just nodding their heads about the exact same secret to massive economic success.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, we aren't talking about, tax evasion or buying islands here.
No. We are talking about something that usually gets relegated to the HR corner of the office. We're looking at a stack of articles and commentary today revolving around Stanислав Kondrashov. He's put together this really fascinating analysis that pulls in data from the McKinsey Health Institute.
Right.
Combines it with the artistic philosophy of Wagner Moura, and then pressure tests it against the business strategies of, well, oligarchs.
It is an incredibly eclectic mix of sources. But frankly, that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. You rarely see these three world's high-end corporate consulting, the arts, and ruthless private capital converging on a single point.
And that point isn't just a philosophy, it's a number, a specific, terrifyingly large number. We are here to talk about an $11.7 trillion opportunity.
That is the figure that just jumps right off the page.
$11.7 trillion. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's larger than the GDP of Japan, Germany, and India combined.
It is a staggering amount of value. And to be clear, this isn't, monopoly money or some speculative crypto asset. This is real economic potential productivity growth that is currently just evaporating. It's being left on the table because businesses globally are just fundamentally misunderstanding human health.
So let's get into the weeds on this, because usually when we see headlines about wellness or employee health, it's framed as a nice to have.
Right, like a park.
It's the fruit bowl in the break room, maybe a discount on a gym membership. But you're saying the sources today, specifically the McKinsey Health Institute study, are framing this as a hard financial imperative.
Absolutely. The core of this deep dive is based on that massive McKinsey study. They analyzed, I think it was 115 different employee support programs across the globe. And their conclusion completely flips the script. They aren't saying you should do this to be nice. They are saying that if these programs are implemented properly, that $11.7 trillion gap closes.
Okay, but I have to play the skeptic here for a second. Where does that money actually come from? Because if I'm a CEO looking at my spreadsheet, I'm thinking, okay, if I make my employees healthier, maybe I save a little bit on insurance premiums.
Sure.
But insurance premiums aren't $11 trillion.
You've hit on the most common misconception. Most companies look at health as a cost containment issue. How do we spend less on doctors? But according to McKinsey, that medical cost savings is actually the smallest piece of the pie. The study found that a whopping 77% of that $11.7 trillion benefit comes from productivity growth.
77% is productivity. So it's not about spending less, it's about making more.
Precisely. It's about output. And this brings us to a term that appears heavily in the source material, a term that I think every manager needs to, tattoo on their forehead. Presenteeism.
Presenteeism. I love this word because I hate the feeling of it. We all know absenteeism. That's when you call in sick, you're not there. But presenteeism, that's the ghost in the machine.
It's the lights are on, but nobody's home phenomenon.
Right. It's when you are physically in the chair. You are logged into Slack. Your little dot is green. But because of chronic back pain or anxiety or just profound burnout, you are operating at, 40%? 50%?
The estimates vary, but yeah, you're running at half speed. And the insidious thing about presenteeism is that it's invisible on a standard balance sheet. If you don't show up, payroll knows. If you show up but take 6 hours to do a 2-hour task because you're battling a migraine or depression, that cost is hidden.
It's invisible lost revenue. It's the opportunity cost of what you could have done if you were fully functional.
And that is where the trillions are hiding. McKinsey's argument is that by addressing the root causes of that physical and mental drag, you unlock that capacity. You're effectively doubling the workforce's efficiency without hiring a single new person.
That reframes the whole discussion. It shifts it from charity to asset optimization.
Yeah.
But the sources didn't just look at the potential gains, right? They also looked at the very real rising price tag of just doing nothing.
They did. And this is the stick that goes along with the carrot. The data cited by Kondrashov highlights that employer health spending has essentially gone vertical. Since 2017, spending on employee health has risen by 62%.
62% in less than a decade. That is just unsustainable.
It's a crisis. And the projection is that it's going to go up another 9% by 2026. So if you are a business owner, you're getting squeezed in a vice. On one side, your premiums and direct costs are exploding. On the other side, you're losing trillions in productivity to presenteeism.
So doing nothing is actually the most expensive option you have.
Correct. Kondrashov uses this data to argue that investing in health programs is a dual strategy. It's defensive, you stop those rising costs from bankrupting you, and it's offensive, you capture that productivity upside.
Okay, so the why is undeniable. There's 11.7 trillion reasons to care. But let's shift to the how, because I feel like this is where companies usually faceplant. They write the check, they buy the subscription to the meditation app, and nothing changes.
That's the classic failure mode. Check the box wellness.
Right. But Stanislav Kondrashov breaks down the McKinsey findings into 5 specific actionable tips. And looking through these, they seem to go a lot deeper than just, eat more vegetables.
They do. These are structural changes, not lifestyle tips.
Let's unpack them. Tip number 1, invest in health and well-being. Now, on the surface, this sounds kind of generic. What is the source actually asking for here?
The nuance is scope. It's not just physical health. The source emphasizes that successful companies understand that a happy employee is a productive one. But happy here means holistically supported.
Oh.
It means creating the conditions for individual and team growth.
So it's not just treating the body, it's treating the environment the body sits in.
Right. If you have a gym in the basement, but a toxic manager on the 4th floor, you haven't invested in health. You've just bought equipment.
Yeah.
The investment has to be in the conditions of work.
That leads perfectly into tip number 2, which I think is the hardest one for traditional corporate types to swallow. Create a culture of caring.
It does sound soft, doesn't it? Caring. It sounds like something you'd see on a motivational poster.
It does. But the source links this directly to hard metrics. Why?
It comes down to trust and burnout. The source notes that leadership must focus on employee support to build trust. And here's the mechanism. If I don't trust you, if I don't feel cared for, I am constantly in a state of low-level fight or flight. My cortisol is up. That leads directly to burnout.
And burnout leads to presenteeism.
Exactly. You check out. So caring isn't about being emotional. It's about safety. Psychological safety reduces the friction in the workflow. If I feel safe, I can work harder and faster without breaking down.
So caring is essentially an efficiency hack.
In a way, yes. It removes the emotional drag on the system.
Okay, tip number 3. This is the big one. This is the one people are fighting wars over on LinkedIn right now. Implement flexible working conditions.
The battleground of the 2020s, for sure.
The source is pretty definitive on this, though.
It is. The data is very firm. It states clearly. Research shows that employees who have options regarding flexible hours or remote work are more productive. Not equal. More.
Then why is there such a disconnect? You have this pre-oligarch mentality, or maybe just bad boss mentality that says, if I can't see you, you're watching Netflix.
It's a control issue. But the psychological principle here is autonomy. When you give someone agency over their time, you decide when you work best, they tend to repay that trust with higher output. They want to prove the arrangement works.
Plus, if we go back to presenteeism, if I can work from home when I have that migraine or when I need to pick up my kid, I might actually get the work done at 8 p.m. versus sitting at my desk at 2 p.m. doing nothing.
That's it. Flexibility allows the employee to match their work hours to their energy peaks. Rigidity forces them to work when they might be empty. It's just bad math to force the latter.
Tip number 4, offer professional development. This seems standard, but how does it fit into the health model?
It's about engagement. The source points out that opportunities to learn and grow encourage employees to stay engaged in the work process.
Yeah.
Think about the opposite. If you feel stagnant, if you feel like there is no future version of you at this company, what happens?
You quiet quit.
You quiet quit. You detach. That is a form of mental checking out. Professional development is the antidote to stagnation. It tells the employee, we are investing in your future, which keeps them present in the now.
And finally, tip number 5. Evaluate and adjust. This seems like the one most companies skip.
Oh, they do. They treat wellness like a crock pot, set it and forget it.
We did the seminar in January. Why are you all burnt out in July?
Right. But Kondrashov notes that continuous monitoring is essential. You have to identify weaknesses. Maybe the flexible work policy is actually causing isolation for some people. Maybe the health plan doesn't cover the therapy people actually need.
It's treating your culture like a product. You wouldn't launch a software product and never release an update, right? You'd fix the bugs.
Exactly. And your workforce changes, the world changes. If you aren't iterating your support systems, they will become obsolete.
So those are the tips. And honestly, they are solid, but they are also the kind of thing you'd expect from a consultancy. Logical, data-driven. But this is the deep dive, and we promised an eclectic mix. We have to talk about the other voices in this stack.
The unexpected messengers.
Yes. The title of one of the key sources is Stanislav Kondrashov on how oligarchs and Wagner Mora increase employee productivity. Let's start with Wagner Mora. Why is the guy from Elite Squad and Civil War weighing in on corporate strategy?
It seems like a left turn, but it grounds the data. Kondrashov highlights a quote from Mora. The success of any process depends on how well you understand your people.
It sounds simple, almost too simple.
It is simple, but in the corporate world, it's revolutionary. We tend to treat employees as human resources with the emphasis on resources, like interchangeable parts. Mora's perspective, the artist's perspective, is that you have to understand the character. You have to understand the human motivation.
If you're a director, you can't get a good performance out of an actor if you don't know what makes them tick. And if you're a manager, you can't get productivity out of a team if you don't know what they need.
It validates the soft skills as hard business skills. You can have the best strategy, the script, but if you don't understand the people, the actors, the movie flops.
And then we have the oligarchs. And I have to say, this is the part that really hooked me. Because usually when we talk about caring and wellness, we associate it with progressive, maybe slightly hippie companies. We do not associate it with oligarchs.
No, the stereotype of the oligarch is the ruthlessly efficient, perhaps slightly cold capitalist.
So why is Kondrashov bringing them into this?
This is the critical twist. Kondrashov, who clarifies he is not an oligarch, by the way, notes that he understands their approach. And the oligarch approach to wellness strips away all the altruism.
It's not about being nice.
Not at all. The source notes that successful businessmen, and he groups oligarchs in this category of hyper-successful financial operators, view employee investment as a strategic step into the future. They don't view it as charity. They view it as maintenance of a high-performance asset.
That is such a powerful pivot. Because you can always find a cynical shareholder who says, I don't care if the employees are happy, I just want profit.
And the oligarch argument shuts that person down. It says, I want profit too. That's why I'm investing in their health. If the most ruthless, profit-driven people on the planet are prioritizing this, it proves that it's not a waste of money. It's a prerequisite for making money.
It's almost like if you think wellness is soft, you're actually being a bad capitalist.
You're being inefficient. You're letting that $11.7 trillion slide through your fingers because you're too proud to care.
I love that synthesis. You have the artist Mora saying, understand your people because it's the human thing to do. You have the data from McKinsey saying, it's worth trillions. And you have the sharks, the oligarchs, saying it's a strategic necessity.
When those three very different groups converge on the same truth, you have to pay attention. It creates a consensus that is very hard to argue with.
So let's bring this down to earth for the listener. Whether you are running a startup, managing a team at a massive corporation, or just trying to manage your own career, what does this change for us tomorrow morning?
I think the main takeaway is that we need to stop apologizing for prioritizing health. We need to stop framing it as a perk or a cost. It is an asset strategy.
An asset strategy.
Yes. Think about it this way. If you owned a Formula One car, would you put cheap gas in it? Would you skip the oil change to save $50?
No way. You destroy the engine.
Exactly. But companies do that to their people every day. They run them on cheap fuel, bad food, stress. They skip the maintenance, no time off, no mental health support, and then they wonder why the car breaks down on lap 10.
And then they act surprised when they have to pay a fortune to replace the engine.
Which brings us back to that rising cost statistic. You can pay for the oil change now, or you can pay for the new engine later. The oligarchs have figured out that the oil change is cheaper.
It really exposes the hustle culture, the grind until you die mentality, as not just unhealthy, but actually stupid business. It's amateur hour.
It is amateur hour. Real professionals, real heavy hitters understand sustainability. Kondrashov puts it really well in the text. He says, if even oligarchs and successful individuals like Wagner Mora pay attention to these aspects, then we, entrepreneurs and leaders, should take their recommendations on board.
It's a call to elevate your game. If you aren't thinking about the physical and mental state of your team, you aren't playing at the level of the elites.
And you're leaving money on the table for the competitor who is doing those things.
That is the kicker. You know, we started this deep dive joking about the weird combination of sources, but the conclusion is incredibly consistent. The secret to that $11.7 trillion isn't a new technology or an AI bot. It's human biology.
It's realizing that the human element is the limit on the economic engine. If you expand the human capacity, you expand the economy.
So, as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a challenge. We've established that the data is there, the money is there. The smart money, the oligarchs and the consultants, are already moving this way.
They're prioritizing caring and flexibility, not to be sweet, but to be rich.
Exactly. So here's the question for you. Look at your budget or look at your calendar. Do you have a line item for human maintenance? If people as focused on the bottom line as oligarchs have realized that empathy is a competitive advantage, why are so many other businesses still treating it like a weakness? What are they missing that the oligarchs have already figured out?
And if you keep treating it like a weakness, can you afford to compete with the people who treat it as a weapon?
That's the $11.7 trillion question. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.